Hey folks, it's Nick. I'm here with my friend Amanda Vanhoozier from Bishop Hill Farm Flowers. In this video, we're going to talk about what she's going to be doing over the next few months to get ready for not only the fall and the winter, but planting out for the spring. Thank you very much for your time. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about how to plant fall flowers in summer heat. There could be two ways that could go. So we're going to cover one like kind of quick, and then we're going to get into a little bit more details about how you would rather us take a look at this. So we'll just get into it. This is Amanda Vanhoozier, my friend for the last 15 years, I think. It's been a while, so tell everybody what Bishop Hill Farm Flowers is all about.
Okay, so Bishop Hill Farm Flowers is my flower farm, and I built it more like a model because I'm in North Texas. There weren't hardly any flower farmers around 2014, 2017, and it was like, I need to build a model and show what you can grow here, and that's kind of where it started, and so that's 9 years or so. In
this video, we're going to discuss, again, summer flowers that you can plant now to have a little bit of blooms in the fall, but then we're really going to get down into some planning on planting for a huge spring and kind of what your next few months are going to look like. And then we're going to cover a little bit about the Bootstrap Farmer farm. We thought we would start off by going, the fall flowers that are coming up is basically like a second summer. Like we get to have a whole new spring. The conditions are about the same. So basically, as far as it goes to plant right now, we're really just doing a succession planting of what has worked for you already. If you're just now growing, that would be something that you would want to grow in the summer. So for some quick wins, marigolds, gomphrena, sunflowers, is it too late to do that?
Well, if you have 60 days, from seed to flower, you could do like a pro cut.
And as far as 60 days is concerned, we're really going to get into the maps and the planting zones here in a little bit. So I know there's folks from all over the country, and we'll kind of help you dial down some of those time frames.
Well, and you could also start snapdragons and stalk, because they'll go into the cold, but if you're not having a freeze for a while, you'll be able to get blooms off of those. And then like flowering kale. Okay. Flowering cabbage, that can grow through the winter, but you can start that now. Starting inside.
Jumping jacks, pansies, Dusty Miller, all that kind of stuff. So let's get into, and we kind of glossed over that because I think you're going to get way more value in what Amanda's fixing to start doing for the rest of the year for that great harvest. I'm just basically going to hand that over to Amanda. Her presentation's up and running, and just like I said, feel free to ask any questions along the way, and we'll get to those at the end.
So really, right now is when I start my calendar year, August 1. So we're right at the cusp of that. So I don't know who I'm talking to, so I'm going to go, what are cool season flowers? Well, they're the hardy annuals. So they're one season, but hardy means they love the cold. And then you've got your bulbs and corms. Corms would be ranunculus anemones. And then you have any perennials that you wanted to put in. Also, you can also plant all of this in the early spring. But here in Texas, we plant in the fall, and probably up to zone 6, 5, you could plant these. And if you're going any further, you would probably want to put these in a hoop house or a greenhouse. I just kind of want to go over the timeline. We're going to go through the timeline. So this is like, here we are, beginning of August. So this is what we're beginning to plan our layout and our field space. And I'm saying this because Nick wants to do this, so I'm giving him, this is for him. And you
enjoy the ride.
You probably already have all this figured out, but here we go. If you don't, I'm going to go through each of these here slide by slide, so I'm not going to go into them big time. But all of the first 4 are things the first 3 are getting organized and getting plans in place. And then you have the soil prep, and then I'll talk about what you can direct seed and what you can transplant. All of these will be planting in the fall to bloom early in the spring or through the spring.
Just for reference, which hardiness zone are you in?
I'm in zone 8. So I'll kind of go over that too. So the way I grow, and a lot of the flower farmers that I know grow, are about 3.5 to 4 foot wide beds. And then they could be at any length that you want them to determine that. And if you want to know how many flowers, you're going to put in a 72 cell tray. Will fill about 10 feet of that bed at 6 to 9 inch spacing. So I use the landscape fabric and I burn the holes in it that are 6 to 9 feet. Inches.
That's a big plant.
There's a big plant. 6 to 9 inch spacing. And then I also put in 3 to 4, if it's 6 inch spacing, I'll do 4 drip tape irrigation under the landscape fabric. So if you're going to be beginning to order this is kind of like, these are the things I need to order. And if you're measuring, you'll know how much to order. And I put an 18-foot path. So I'm actually doing a 6 foot wide.
18-inch path.
Take it. I'm on a foot.
It's a good thing we're not getting the metric system today. We'll really have trouble.
6 feet wide gives you the bed, and then it overlaps in the path with an 18-inch path. So it works real well. Here's some just my favorite hardy annuals. These are some of the things I plant. Dianthus, yarrow, corncockle. I mean, everything's here. Ammi. You've got some focal flowers, and then you've just got just some flowers that bloom and then they're gone.
This is a big list, considering that some people may just get started. Is there an ideal number that, hey, this is my first year, I only have a row, I only have a raised bed? How many varieties would be too many to say?
Well, Nick, when you're going to start growing flowers, you really need to think, who are the customers? I mean, marketing your flowers needs to be planned up front too, because then that kind of dictates what you're going to grow. I grow for market, so I grow a much more showy flower. If you're selling to florists, you're going to grow more of the fluffy, softer colors. So that's one of the considerations. You know, I like to grow flowers that produce a lot, like cut and come again. They will continue to make flowers. My favorite of this list is the Icelandic poppy. That is like gold, because they just continue to bloom, and months of poppies, and then you're cutting them and more poppies. I'm not going to go into that much until later in this webinar. I'll talk about what you can direct seed and what you need to transplant that works best. Those are the poppies right there. Those are Icelandic. Growing other kinds of poppies don't last in a vase, but these do, and they come in multiple colors. Right now in your planting phase, you do ordering your seeds and corms and bulbs. I order my corms and bulbs back in March when they're blooming, and then I have them shipped to me when I schedule them. It may be late. It's harder to find things right now. I mean, everybody's growing, and there's shortage. Order early, but there's also, like for seeds, you can order those and get them pretty quickly. Decide what you're going to order and how many you need, and get them ordered. And then also, there's a lot of seed companies that have growing information about every flower. And it's really good to read up on all of that.
And they're talking about ideal soil composition, ideal pH, what they like to eat.
How they germinate. The whole thing.
And this may help you decide, well, I may put these two pair well together in the same type of bed. I can move this over to like a sandier area.
Right. Yeah. They give you so much information. And I have my phone in the field most of the time, and I'm looking, when do I harvest these? And you can look it up right there. I'm going to go into, you're going to try to schedule when you start the plants in the fall. And now you've kind of got your layout, you've got your seeds order, you figured that out. Here's the schedule that I use, and I kind of feel like it's a good way to go. This is the hardiness zone. Hardiness means how cold can plants get, or how cold it gets, and then you know what the zone is for, a plant will say, oh, it's a zone 6 through 9, or, so you find your zone, which I'm at 8A. But if you look up there at Oregon, we're in the same zone. And I'm like, well, I can grow what Oregon grows. Well, let's look at something else, because this is how cold it can get. But then there's the plant heat zone map. American Horticulture Society has that. But if you look, it says, how many days is it over 80? Well, if you look at Oregon, you have 30 days over 80. And you look at Texas, it's 120 to 150 days.
So you're looking for more heat-tolerant plants where you're at.
So this is why in Texas and the southern, we have to plant in the fall so they go through a cool time because they love cool.
And if it doesn't do that, sometimes they're not going to germinate.
Oh, they won't bloom. Well, they'll germinate because you can start them indoors at the right temperature, but then will they bloom? Because they needed some chill hours. When you're going by the average frost date, and you can get that on the Farmer's Almanac or something like that, the average frost date changes. It's kind of hard because you have seen the weather go up and down and be weird this year and last year and maybe in the 9 years I've been farming. It's definitely changed. So it's like, I don't want to go off of a date that I don't even know what it is. Now, my average frost is the end of November. So I would rather go off on day length because day length is going to always be what the day length is. And so I try to find the 10-hour day length. And you can go on timeanddate.com and find that for your location. So you got to go to your location, look it up, and then go down and you can start moving this little, it's not live here. You can move the dial till you see 10.
That's where
where my lock is.
Lock icon
I'm December 15th is my 10-hour day. So, because the days are getting shorter right now. And so I take that 10-hour day and then I start counting backwards from that, and that will give me an idea of when to plant. I started planting as if I was in zone 8, and I used to plant these flowers. I'd start them right now inside, put them out in mid-September. Well, in my area, that's could still be almost 90 degrees every day, and that's really hard on these plants. Love cold. So a 10-hour day will actually bring it back so that it won't grow a lot, but it will make good roots, and it will be hunkered down. At the 10-hour day, a plant kind of stops and hunkers down for the winter, just like when the wildflowers out there. They make that rosette, they just sit. And then in the spring, they shoot up. 12-hour, 14-hour days is when they bloom. So you can kind of look at the day length and kind of even know when they're going to bloom.
And that's kind of why we see down here, like bluebonnets, they all pop around the same time.
Yeah, and it's the day length. How long, it's really how long the night is, but we call it day length, and we just look at the hours of the day. What do you do? Back it up. So you need about 4 to 6 weeks from that 10-hour day to plant your transplants, to seed your trays. And I do those indoors. And then back that up, planting the corms and bulbs, which would be your tulips, your anemones, your ranunculus, callas. Those would be 4 to 6 weeks back from that 10-hour date. And then if you're going to direct seed, and I'll show you what we'll direct seed. A lot of those you just put the seed in the ground, but it has to be 65 to 70 degrees. That's 6 to 8 weeks back from that 10-hour day. So what I'm looking at with my December 15th, I'll go back. So I'd go back 2 months and start seeding. So that in September, I'd be seeding my trays to put them out in 1st of November, which give them 4-6 weeks before December 15th. Does that make sense?
And that's why you want to have those seeds on hand and you're ready to plant.
Yeah, you're ready. So you've got the schedule, and I always put it all in my calendar. So I'm on schedule, and I start those seed transplants 10 to 12 weeks before the 10-hour date, and then go out, direct seed 6 to 8 weeks, and then get my corms in. And so I'm not pressured to do everything at the same time. And then my transplants are already nice little starts, and then I could take those out and put them out.
And on this picture, you also have your low hoops ready, your frost blanket ready. Like you're preparing for the season well before it.
Yes, I put those up in October because I actually leave them up all the time. But I don't leave the material out there, the frost cloth. But the hoops I leave because the birds like to perch on them and go in and eat grasshoppers or other little bugs.
Winter shade cloth can go on there too.
Yeah, and then I pull the shade cloth, which right now I have it on my zinnias because I just put some in.
I do have a question from Shanna in 6B that I think would be might help on that last one, which is for cool season seedlings, how many hours should we have the grow lights on since the days are getting shorter. And I would say that was probably going to be variety specific, depending on what's on that package or what the needs of that germination would be for that seed.
It could. So really what you're doing is getting them to germinate, which you probably know if it takes light to germinate or dark.
And I know some of these flowers take a long time to germinate. Right?
Oh yeah, sometimes a couple of weeks or more. That all is in on that information. But after that, you're not trying to grow a flower. So you're not trying to hit that 12-hour day. You're just trying to get that to grow up about like this so you can plant it out, which takes about 4 to 6 weeks because it takes a while to germinate a lot of these seeds. So I can't tell you for sure on everything, but I run mine about 10 hours.
Okay. And the information is likely on the seed packet or on a lot of times if you go to these seed companies, especially the ones like you would use as a market gardener, you can go to seed details, product specs, stuff like that. Like it's usually not on the very first page. You have to click around.
It says growing information, and then from there you can get a lot of good information. I said that I would say what flowers are good for starting transplants in cells inside under lights. Well, you start them before lights and then you put them under the lights. I use LED long ones. You probably know your lights a whole lot better than me. Bootstrap Farmer here. Notice that it's 65 to 70 degrees. Most of these like to start cool. If you're doing zinnias, sunflowers, or gomphrenia inside, they like to be more like 75, 80. Sometimes it's hard to get your house that cool, and I have like an extra room that I try to really cool down to get these to germinate. So these are the seeds that work well to seed in trays and then transplant them out. So you got dianthus. The Icelandic poppies are really hard, and I'm just going to say I buy the plugs from a grower because they can get them to grow and they can get 120.
I was just writing that down to ask you about plugs. So.
Yeah, the plugs, and some people buy everything plugs. If you're a good, starting seeds, you can do it. But Icelandic poppies, I'd rather have them assured and go ahead and have those plugs. I've already ordered them in July 1st. They'll be shipped to me on the week that I wanted them, or that I want them.
Yeah, I've ordered plugs in the past, and it's such a system that they have, and it's very, very nice to know what you're going to get, which leads me to the question, because Icelandic poppies are so important to your bottom line, I mean, that's one that you just can't risk not having.
That's right.
Like you would never do that for marigolds.
No. And really, now you have the schedule of when you're going to plant everything, so you're down to the week that you need them to come. And they'll come in a box, and in 2 days you can have them out in the field. My thing is the rabbits love to eat them because they are yummy or something. So I cover them with frost cloth before night, and then I pull the frost cloth back off. And that seems to keep the rabbits off of them because they usually feed at night on them. The feverfews, scabiosa, snapdragons, status. I love all the S's, stalk. All of those scabiosa, all of them you can plant with not putting dirt on top of them because they like the light, so they're real easy to plant out in cells. You can do air pruning cells that you guys have. That's what I usually use, but I've also done soil blocks. And then foxglove, yarrow, those are just some, but you got to decide what you want to do. And then these are direct seed. Direct seed is so much easier because you get them in, but it's hard for where I am because not always the soil temperature is that cool. So that's why I wait longer before I put those in. Usually I'm putting them in the second week of November here in Zone 8. These are a lot of just your fillers if you're making bouquets and the fun things, especially the like sweet peas, Orlea, Ammi, Bells of Ireland, Daucus. Those are all like the greenery that you would use in arrangements and bouquets. I have poppies bread seed or any of the other poppies. Those can be direct seeded, and a lot of times they self-seed, but I don't really use them because I don't have a long vase life. Bachelor buttons are kind of those, they're kind of hard to cut. They don't last long, but they're kind of the one that bloom before other things bloom, so it's like fills that gap.
So is there anything that you won't grow anymore? Like if you've tried it, it was hard to cut, maybe it's too much foliage, whatever the case may be, is there anything that you won't grow anymore?
Well, bills of Ireland are tough for me because we have a lot of rain, and they turn brown because they hold the rain, because they're like little bells and they hold the rain. You know, they get kind of big and weird and not good for what I do, because I do a lot of bouquets, and they have those brown spots on them just because of all the rain. Now, if I had a greenhouse, there you go.
if the city would allow you.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's go on, and we're going to talk about those anemones and ranunculus. These are my, like, everybody loves them. They're the mainstay of the farm in the spring. They usually, the anemones come first. I've even had them bloom in December, January, on through March. The ranunculus are much more tuned to just about a month, and you get a good crop, buckets and buckets, and then they're done. And everybody loves them. So like I said, when they're blooming, I'm online ordering the next year to be shipped in, because I'm going to put them in the end of October. I usually soak them so that they get kind of full, they get a little bit bigger by being soaked, and then I'll stick them in the cooler about 42 degrees, and they'll start to root. I don't really hold them till they start sprouting, because the sprouts break off pretty easily. But by having them till they root, you kind of see which ones are going to be viable and which aren't, and you don't want to take up space with ones that aren't. But this last year I was gone, and then I came back, and I was like, I got to get all these in. I never soaked them, I never put them in the cooler, and I had really good ranunculus. So do I really need to do that? I don't know. I plant them in the field, usually at about, some of them I do 6 inches apart. You can do them pretty tight. If I had to only have low tunnels and frost cloth it, and sometimes like plastic, and really tie it down because we might get really cold, I would say those are the two that I really always make sure that I have covered, because they're the ones that will pull you through at market.
Okay. And like I say, it's just such a draw, and they're always popular, and the colors are just, they're all over the place.
Stunning. And for a flower grower that grows like almost all these summer flowers, this is so different that people really just come in. This is, now I'm ready to actually prepare. So I know what I'm going to order. I've already ordered. I'm waiting for that. I've already made my schedule of how I'm going to plant them out and what I'm going to plant. So now I have a little bit of time. My problem is I have a pretty small farm, so I've got like a 1/4 acre, and I put some cover crops where I'm going to put some of these, but not all, because I'm putting in more celosia this week. You got to kind of pull and work your beds, flip them over. So I always feed the soil. I love microbes, and I'm going to try to give them as much as they can get. I use a compost from a really good composter, and you don't need a lot of compost. You really, a 1/2 inch or 2 inches on top. You don't want to turn it in, because then you're bringing up the weed seeds. A lot of times the microbes will go and bring it down and make the aeration for you, but I like to use the broad fork for aeration, because we've grown all year on this bed, so it kind of opens it up.
Do you feel you've had to broad fork a little more, given how much rain we've had this year where we're at? I mean, it's just this spring has been pretty rough.
It's a lot of rain. I have sandy loam, so I'm pretty good with the sand. And I feel like a lot of places around me are cliche clay, but with the clay, it's hard to put that landscape fabric on there, because it gets to where it steams underneath, because the soil won't drain the water out, and so you almost steam your roots in the heat of the summer. So a lot of growers don't use it, the landscape fabric, because it's black, but for me with sandy soil, I'm good. The broad fork, over time my soil's gotten much better, because I'm continually feeding. I'm doing full year feeds. And then you want to lay out your drip lines and get all of your irrigation set up before you put those plants in, because then it's too late. It's hard to weave it in there.
When we're talking to folks about hoop houses, we'll tell them that they need drip irrigation, but then they'll also need overhead when they first transplant. Do you find that you're having to overhead whenever you're first putting them in?
A little hand watering.
Okay.
And I usually hand water twice a day as I'm getting them to be established. And if I'm direct seeding, I'm probably over hand watering 2 or 3 times a day just to make sure that they germinate evenly, and then the roots will find the irrigation drips. And then, here we talked about the hoops and setting up and being ready. You don't want to be out there and the wind's whipping and it's cold and you're like, oh, I need to bring this frost cloth out. It's like a sail. So I like to get it all, and I lay out my frost cloth, hold it down with the sandbags until I'm ready to pull. And so when I know it's going to get cold, I'll go and pull it. I tend to go about 28 degrees feeling like everything's good, and then it depends, because we get really hot days and then all of a sudden a front will come through and it will drop all the way down to 28 in hours. That's hard on a plant because they're not used to it.
Where we're at, in particular around Dallas, I mean, we get these ice storms. How are you preparing for that? How are you combating that sheet of ice that's going to be on there likely for several days?
I like to use the plastic because it kind of slides off of it, because these are just low hoops. Right. The thing that I have noticed, if it's going to do a little snow and a freeze, I'll let the snow hit the plants and just sit on them. I have a picture
because again, they like
here.
the cold.
The anemones, I've had them frozen in a vase with the water in the vase froze, and they thaw out and then they last for 2 more weeks. I mean, they're kind of like that cold. What doesn't like the cold is strawflowers, and they're always kind of grouped in, and winged everlasting. They're grouped in with all these others, but strawflowers are much more temperamental, so I try to hold those off, and I really don't plant them until January, February, and still get strawflowers. And even if I'm doing succession, they all bloom at once. The most cold tolerant, I cover anemones, ranunculus, the poppies. I'll just do a frost cloth over the top of the poppies because they're still not very tall. But last year we had a freeze in February that was pretty low for us. I hate to say this, but it was like 14. I did a double frost cloth. I used the 19, and they were blooming underneath there.
One question we just got up, and we're talking about anemones and ranunculus right now, is your recommended supplier for both of those, Shannon and 6B?
Ballhort is like a distributor, and they have a lot. They have the most because they handle a lot of different companies. So they're like, I guess that's a distributor. Edney's is the one that I would pick on the list. And then Oni's brings in some really good, and they bring in some of the better Italian ranunculus and anemones that are a little bit bigger, corms too.
So different suppliers are going to have different varieties that you can pick
from.
Yeah.
And they're also different sizes. So you got your 3-4, your 5-6, 7-8. I tend to grow medium and then large because you're going to get a better flower.
And these are the ones that look like little tarantulas, right?
I call them the squid, but yeah, tarantula.
I see tarantulas. I'm terrified.
And then the other one looks like a little nut. The anemone looks like a nut.
All right, so here's the part that you're basically going to boss me around, tell me what to do. So this is an overhead view of our new farm at Bootstrap Farmer. The building on the right is where we're currently sitting in, which is the new studio. And you can see these irrigation lines that we just put up. And that's what the property looked like. It's a little less than 2 acres, all in all total. This was probably taken in March, kind of the overhead view. So we're real long and narrow with a lot of grass. And if you see the brown, we're going to do 1/10 of an acre with a 20 by 40 greenhouse. That orange represents a little buffer in between. And then we're going to do a 30 by 60 hoop house. But then into the fall, we're doing different cover crops on these, mainly because we need to cover it with some of the stuff we're doing at Bootstrap Farmer. But then I get to save on the mowing with the eventual hope that we can do different sunflowers next year, kind of thing. So we're down to some bare ground right now. The big hoop house is out of the question because we already have a project for that. But if this was your place and you had to, I guess I should preface that whole entire brown area and the orange area is going to get covered in silage tarp for the next probably 6 weeks while we're building out some other stuff. And that's going to be our start.
Okay.
And then you saw that we have a bunch of mulch and compost ready to go. In fact, you can see in that picture with those, where that red truck is, there's a bunch of pallets of compost. I do have the ranunculus ordered.
Oh, good.
Or it's here. And then we probably have half of our flower seeds already in-house. So we're a little ahead of schedule there.
So now you need to look at your 10-hour day and back it up.
Which is your 10-hour day.
And you've got trays. You can just pop them in there. And you may want to just start with what you transplant. I'm always saying plan it out and start small, and then as you get experience, you can go out. Because you don't want to have so much you can't figure out how to take care of.
And that's my biggest worry here, is because like this is a whole nother job I'm adding to myself. So that confining this into a 1/10 of an acre, knowing everything we have going on, I know that I don't want to plant all that out all at one time, because between now and let's just say March of next year, we're really just getting a lot of infrastructure ready. But I also know I need to overwinter some of this stuff. But I'm hoping not to go. We're not going to market, so I'm not going to go too crazy.
Right, and really, you can also direct seed something that is just like easy to just throw the seed out and you've got it going. Like bachelor buttons, nigella. I mean, and that takes up some space, but it also blooms for you. Mm-hmm. And then you can also find the biennials. So they're going to bloom next spring, but they'll stay around and then bloom again, and then put in some perennials. Perennials are like your mainstay later. Echinacea, rudbeckia, any of the, I have coneflower, I have rudbeckias, all different kinds. There's some beautiful ones. And then triloba is another rudbeckia. So I also have what I love. I like status. I dry a lot of flowers. I'm a dryer. Because I sell through the winter, I have to do it with dried flowers. But status, sometimes they'll come back in a way better the next year. But sea lavender is a type of status that takes 2 years before it blooms, and it just blooms like big. They almost look like lavender in the field.
So a lot of your selection is going specifically for those dried flowers. Are you harvesting those different, or you're like how's that working out in your planning? Between, hey, I know I want to have fresh flowers, but I also need to basically build up your own inventory to carry you through the winter.
So I've been drying flowers since I started, so I kind of know which ones dry well and which don't. Actually, ranunculus dry pretty well. So I had a flush of ranunculus this spring, and I dried a bunch, so I'm going to put together some really nice little baskets with those. Gomphrena, strawflower, winged everlasting, those are everlasting type flowers anyway. So yeah, I plant more of those. And like this week, I was harvesting, and then I hang them to dry in a dry room. And strawflowers are done for me for the season. But I always harvest those when they're just lifting some of the petals, not all of them, because when you hang them to dry, they just continue to open a little bit, and you don't want them to blow out and be like weird looking. I sell flowers fresh. All of those go fresh, but I'm a no waste farm, so I try to, if I have bouquets left over, I'm drying them. Okay. I'm drying everything, and later I can work that into something like a wreath, or I did a wedding last year and did some dried flowers on an arbor, and a lot of it was just I have a lot of natives. I'm along a creek, and I can pull some of the natives in and dry those too. So
we're at Baldwin Food Forest, some friends of ours down south, and I spent a couple of days as they were harvesting in the field, and then they spent time with us talking about how they do it. And there's going to be a lot of similarities to what you do, and then they found their own way to do some things. Just like everybody that is watching, you're going to find your own way.
Oh yeah.
And you have an extensive network in DFW, and each one of those farms does it just a little bit different. So getting together, covering some of these questions, they're all going to basically get you 90% of the way there. That last 10%, I think, at least the first year is going to come with experience.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it, like I said before, it really depends on where you think you're going to market them and where you're going to sell them. And don't wait until they're blooming to figure that out. You've got to start building that network as you are growing and beginning to grow. For a farmer like Bolden, they actually were doing produce, and then they just added flowers onto their produce. So they already had their markets set up.
And that's the basis in which we filmed this. It's how they planned, how they prepped, and then we went out to the field, and then they showed we didn't make any bouquets, but they showed, hey, we took this specific, and this is how we deflower it, and got real down into the weeds.
Take the foliage off,
per se. And then Ben on the left, he talked about, from going to the market side of things, the customer's reaction to it. So it's a 3-part series. So find us on YouTube. This is going to be on YouTube as quick as we can get it on there, but all of that starts dripping out the first week of August. So just something to check out. So now we're down to the Q&A, and I'm going to come down. So if you have any questions, we're going to be here for a little bit. If you have straw flowers, would you harvest them at their peak if you want them for dry bouquets? It's Priscilla, Ohio Zone 6.
Oh, yeah. So I kind of touched on that. The petals start to pull away from the ball. And when they start to pull away, maybe 2 rows of them pull away, is usually when I cut them. But I also make sure that stem is pretty straight and full, because if you cut them too soon, they have a weak head. And then I hang everything upside down to dry, so it kind of dries them to where they'll stand back up. I never wire my straw flowers because I try to harvest them when that stem is a little bit stiffer. But if you wait until you see the inner eye, they'll blow backwards and be like they're in the wind. Whew, all their petals are going straight back.
Is there any good website that you're aware of that lists toxic info that maybe they bought a place just like we did where there was livestock on it before that maybe covers some of that? And look, it is one of those things, folks, we can't be experts in everything. I don't know.
I don't have any livestock, so I'm not familiar.
If I was faced with this, there'd be 2 things I would do. I would go to the county extension agent.
Yeah, maybe
they know the farm. Maybe they know the history. The next thing you could do is pull a soil test. That would be one that you would have to send off to the lab. Maybe they can run a toxology report of some degree and just say, hey.
Well, you can pull on plants and send plants to lab too.
Okay, there you go.
But definitely your county extension will know.
Yeah.
Straight out. Or other ranchers.
That's where we would start. Humid climate. Can I use a food dehydrator to dry the flowers, or is that too harsh? That's Rebecca in New York.
I have never used a food dehydrator, but I hang them to dry. But I have them in air conditioning, so the air conditioning's pulling the humidity out of the air.
And I would say, so my past experience making like a lot of dried garnishes for drinks in the food truck that I had, I needed that right now. I think you have the luxury of you're going to hang this and it's going to stay for quite a while, and you don't have to rush it with the dehydrator.
That's true. Yeah. And the other thing is a lot of people dry them in barns that are hot. A wood stove burning in a shed would also dry them really well. For me, I tried that, and I did it in a shed, and the mice came in and they ate up a whole lot. I was like, well, that wasn't good. So you have to work, like you said, you learn.
Do you have to, like, when you're drying, do you have to worry about, how does different humidity affect the drying out process?
Oh, it absolutely will. And that's when people buy the flowers, they're like, well, how do I take care of these? And I'm like, they shouldn't be in the bathroom where you're taking showers, because they will just limp right back down because they're absorbing the water out of the air, and then they go limp.
The George Costanza flowers.
So, yeah.
Amanda, do you do any trainings or farm visits for us trying to learn how to start flower farming Northeast Texas? That's Tracy.
Oh yeah. So part of my model farm was that I will do workshops. I do farm consulting. I have tours at my farm, and I like to do personal tours. Like you would come to my farm, and I would know what you're interested, and then give you an hour tour, and that kind of gives you a whole lot. And I have actually had people who are just beginning to farm come to my farm, and within that hour they get enough to, and I have a handout, and they feel like they're on the road.
So at the very top, one of the first things we put is Amanda's link to Instagram, website through that. Okay, have you ever tried producing stock blooms in the fall? Robin's 08.
Yeah, they always bloom in the fall when I was planting around September, the middle of September. So yes, and they looked really good, but then we'd get a freeze in December, and that would, when they're blooming, the freezes just take them down.
Next three are my own personal questions that I had. It's very popular to have herbs in bouquets now. I know that a lot of these are going to be perennials. Basil is very popular, especially the purples and the Thai basil. Let those flower out as well. The schedule for the flowers is very similar to how you would do it for the herbs. You're looking at the packages. You're deciding, hey, how big do these things? Because a basil plant can get huge real quick. Right. So how are you incorporating flowers into your stuff?
Herbs.
Yes.
Well, so I use the lemon basil in all summer long. It makes a nice little spike. It's full. It's my green for a lot of arrangements and bouquets. I also use the Thai basil because it has that purple. Not the purple basil, but the Thai basil has a purple flower, and I wait till they kind of flower and then cut them, and they just keep coming back. The more you cut, the more they come back. And then I put in a lot of mint. I like mint, but be careful because mint goes everywhere.
Takes
so
over the world.
I really put it at the edge, and then I did landscape fabric on either side, and then I run my weed eater along there so that they doesn't take over everything. But mountain mint is my absolute favorite. It is. If you don't know what a mountain mint is, go and find it because it's not as aggressive as mint, but it makes a almost sage green
It's like
topper.
the longer.
I also have oregano when it goes to flower. Mm-hmm. That puts a nice stem. And really you don't need but a few patches of all of that. I usually cut about 60 stems a week.
How do you feel about using, I would say like a woody, like what a landscaper would use, like for instance, whenever I had my farm and we were doing very, very minimal bouquets, I would do a lot of lower pedalum, which is that, purple round leaf or atlas cedar or something like that. Is there anything that you're using from the ornamental landscaping industry that you're bringing in for your greenery or filler? I
use the Eliangus silverleaf a lot in the with the anemones and ranunculus because there's no greens at that time, and I cut off of those. And I also have a snowball viburnum, which is old and gorgeous, and it lasts.
It's a little shorter now that I got to it.
Yes, you and I, we whacked it around, but it really did bloom a lot after that, and that takes you in through April, through a lot of times all the holidays. So it's a great, and if you cut it when it's kind of greenish before it all blows out, it will hold better in the vase.
And I know a lot of that's going to come down to like your own personal aesthetic that you're going to find over time.
People say, "Oh, I saw your flowers over here, and I knew they were yours." There's a personality to everybody's flowers, definitely.
Okay,
and you'll find that.
And that's one of the things that we talked about at Baldwin quite a bit is like their look and how they were so tight on cultivating that and growing for that. So really looking forward to that series. One other thing I wanted to share is, Amanda and I sat down 2-3 years ago and did one of my favorite interviews I've ever done, and it's the history of farmers markets. We put that link way up at the top, right below her links. It's on YouTube. It's about 45 minutes from how farmers markets just even got started. It was a
the
great
history. Yeah.
a great talk. We found a lot of old photos on that, and it was really great. Kimberly in Washington celebrated a birthday yesterday. Thanks for showing
Happy
up
birthday.
and having us be a part of your birthday weekend. You're doing a pollinator garden, and I'm thinking about pollination. I'm thinking about flowers. I'm also thinking about you're a flower farmer. How are you compartmentalizing? This is for the bees. This is for me. Is there any cross in between? And where does an intentional flower pollinator garden land within your small farm?
Only because I am concerned about the monarchs, and so I want to put in the butterfly weed for the native butterfly weed for the monarchs on their flights back to Mexico. I feel like that's our way, or just stop over, because it's a host plant for the monarchs, and that will be separate. I won't cut on it. It will be just for that. I'm also going to do a wildflower seed mix in that. So my main thing was native plants way before I started growing cut flowers, because I was doing drought tolerant, and it was like native plants. On a typical day out there, without any pollinators, but the whole thing is a pollinator. There are wasps, bees, butterflies, dragonflies, everything. It's just buzzing and moving all the time. And I mean, that's what you want to get everything. If you were going to do cucumbers or eggplant, you need all of that out there, because they're the pollinators.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for driving up here and doing this live with us in studio. Thank you for everything. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see everybody next time.